My friends, I stand before you today to remind you of a powerful truth. God is moving swiftly in this season of your life. The winds of change are stirring, and if you have been waiting, if you have been praying, know that God's hand is at work. We serve a God who does not delay. His timing is perfect. In Scripture, we see that when he moves suddenly. One moment Joseph was a prisoner, the next he was a ruler. One moment Ruth was gleaning in the fields, and the next she was stepping into a divine marriage with Boaz. Some of you have been waiting, wondering if God has forgotten you. You have watched others step into their marriage season, and you have asked, Lord, when will it be my turn? But I declare to you today, God is moving quickly. The question is, are you ready? Are you positioned in faith? God does not move according to our emotions. He moves according to his divine plan. And when he moves, things happen suddenly. That is why we must be prepared. We must align our hearts, remove doubt, and walk in obedience. Many times, delay is not from God, but from our own hesitation. When he brings the right person into your life, will you be ready? When he opens the door, will you step through? This is the moment to pray, to prepare, and to walk in faith. If you are in a waiting season, don't waste it. Draw closer to God. Let him shape your character, because when he moves, you won't have time to get ready. You must already be ready. God is moving quickly in your marriage season. Open your heart, trust his process, and walk boldly into what he has prepared for you. The time is now. The door is open. Step forward in faith. Amen. Life unfolds in a series of moments, and within these moments, we often struggle with the feeling that things are not happening fast enough. We wait, we long for change. We look at our circumstances and wonder why we are not yet where we believe we should be. But what if our perception of time is flawed? What if the idea of delay is not delay at all, but rather a necessary preparation for something far greater than we can currently comprehend? The concept of timing is critical because it forces us to confront our own impatience and to question whether our dissatisfaction is rooted in reality or in our inability to see beyond the present moment. One of the most difficult things for people to accept is that their plans do not always unfold according to their own desires. We set goals, we craft expectations, we work hard believing that our effort alone will produce the results we seek. And yet so often we encounter obstacles, unforeseen challenges, and above all, time itself. We may feel as though we are waiting indefinitely for an opportunity, for success, for love, for fulfillment. And in that waiting, frustration creeps in. We become restless, questioning whether the very things we hoped for will ever materialize. But here's the truth. Things happen exactly when they are supposed to happen, neither too early nor too late. This is not a passive statement of resignation, but an active recognition of how complex systems, our lives included, unfold in ways that are often beyond our immediate understanding. Imagine for a moment a person who desires marriage. They long for companionship, for connection, for the profound sense of meaning that comes with building a life alongside another, yet, despite their longing, they remain single. They look around and see others entering relationships, getting engaged, moving forward, and the temptation to become bitter, to assume that something has gone wrong becomes overwhelming. But what if their waiting is not a mistake? What if instead of being a delay, it is actually a necessary part of their own growth? The process of becoming the kind of person who is ready for a lifelong commitment is not instantaneous. It requires an immense amount of self-awareness, responsibility, and personal transformation. It means confronting weaknesses, developing strength, and, most importantly, learning how to engage with the world in a way that fosters genuine connection. A relationship, particularly one that is meant to last, is not merely about attraction or shared interests. It is about two people coming together who are capable of navigating the difficulties of life, who can endure suffering and hardship without falling apart, who can bear the weight of responsibility that love demands. This is why timing is so important. If a person rushes into a relationship before they are ready, before they have developed the character and resilience necessary to sustain it, they may find themselves overwhelmed, disillusioned, or worse, contributing to their own downfall. There is a reason that relationships fail, and it is rarely due to external circumstances alone. More often than not, it is because the individuals involved were not prepared for the demands that such a commitment requires. If a person has not yet learned to regulate their emotions, to communicate with honesty and clarity, to bear the burdens of another without resentment, then they are not ready. And being unready does not mean they are doomed to be alone forever. It simply means that the necessary work must be done before they can step into something meaningful. This is why patience is not passive. It is not about waiting idly for something to happen. It is about preparing oneself so that when the moment arrives, they are able to step into it with strength, with clarity, and with the full weight of their potential. It is about trusting that the movement of life is not random, but structured in such a way that what is needed will come when the conditions are right. To believe that timing is perfect is not to say that things will always go the way we want them to. It is to recognize that life is infinitely more complex than our individual perspectives allow us to see. What seems like a delay is often protection. What feels like waiting is often refinement. And what appears to be a setback is sometimes the most critical part of our journey forward. The challenge then is to adopt a mindset that aligns with this reality. It means not becoming bitter when things do not happen as quickly as we desire. It means not measuring our progress against the timelines of others. It means understanding that we are responsible for our own development, and that if something is not happening yet, it may be because we are not yet prepared for it. This is not an easy truth to accept. It is far easier to blame circumstances, to fall into despair, to convince ourselves that we have been overlooked or forgotten. But that path leads only to resentment, and resentment is a corrosive force that erodes the very foundation of personal growth. Instead, we must recognize that preparation and timing go hand in hand. If something is not yet here, then there is work to be done. There are skills to develop, perspectives to refine, experiences to gain. And when the time is right, when we have become the kind of people who are truly ready, the door will open. The opportunity will present itself. And we will not just step into it blindly, but with the wisdom and strength required to sustain it. So do not despair in the waiting. Do not assume that time is working against you. Recognize instead that time is shaping you, refining you, preparing you for what is to come. And when the moment arrives, you will not be overwhelmed by it. You will be ready. The human psyche is shaped by preparation, and preparation is fundamentally tied to faith. Faith is not merely belief in something unseen. It is the active engagement in a process that moves you forward even when the outcome is uncertain. People often assume that faith is passive, something you simply have or do not have, but this is incorrect. Faith, properly understood, is a discipline. It requires work. It demands sacrifice. And above all, it necessitates a willingness to prepare for something that has not yet arrived. Consider the way people approach their desires. They long for something, perhaps a fulfilling career, a stable relationship, or a sense of meaning in their lives. And yet, when the opportunity arises, they often find themselves unprepared. Why? Because wanting something and being ready for it are two entirely different things. There is a profound distinction between hoping for an outcome and cultivating the qualities necessary to sustain that outcome. This is why preparation matters. This is why faith is inextricably linked to action. Take the example of someone seeking marriage. They say they are ready. They want love, commitment, partnership. But if you look at their life, you might see a different story. Perhaps they struggle with discipline. Perhaps they have unresolved emotional wounds. Perhaps they are not yet capable of fully carrying the weight of responsibility that a long-term relationship demands. The question then is not whether they want marriage, but whether they are truly prepared for it. And preparation is not something that happens overnight. It is the accumulation of thousands of small, disciplined actions, each one shaping an individual into the kind of person who can sustain what they claim to desire. Faith, then, is not merely about believing that something will happen. It is about acting in accordance with that belief. It is about structuring your life in such a way that you are ready when the moment arrives. If you believe that a significant opportunity is coming, you do not wait passively. You prepare. You develop the skills, the mindset, the habits necessary to seize that opportunity when it presents itself. And this applies to every domain of life. Imagine someone training for a marathon. They do not simply wake up one morning and decide to run 26.2 miles. They train, they build endurance, they discipline their body. And in doing so, they demonstrate faith, not in an abstract sense, but in the most concrete way possible. They believe they will run the race, so they act accordingly. They align their daily behavior with their long-term goal. And when the day of the race arrives, they are ready. Now apply that same logic to relationships, to career, to personal development. If you desire something but you are not actively preparing for it, then you do not truly believe it is coming. That is the brutal reality. And many people live in this contradiction. They claim to have faith, yet they do nothing to prepare. This is a dangerous way to live because it breeds disappointment and disillusionment. When the opportunity finally comes, they are unprepared, they squander it. And rather than recognizing their own lack of preparation, they blame circumstances. They say life is unfair, when in reality, life simply rewarded those who were ready. So how does one prepare? The answer is through discipline and self-examination. You must ask yourself difficult questions. What are your weaknesses? Where are your blind spots? What aspects of your character need refinement before you can handle what you are asking for? This process is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. It forces you to confront the fact that you are not yet who you need to be. And once you acknowledge that, you can begin the real work of transformation. This transformation does not happen quickly. It is a slow, incremental process. But every small step, every act of discipline, every lesson learned, every moment of self-improvement moves you closer to the goal. And when the time comes, you will not be caught off guard. You will not be scrambling to become the person you need to be at the last minute. You will already be that person. There is an old saying, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. This is profoundly true. Opportunities arise unexpectedly. Life does not wait for you to be ready. It moves forward, indifferent to your level of preparedness. The people who succeed, the people who step into their desires with confidence, are those who understood this truth early and lived accordingly. They did the hard work before it was required. They built the foundation before the storm arrived. And so the question remains, do you truly have faith in what is coming? If you do, then your actions must reflect that belief. You cannot simply wait. You must prepare. You must become the kind of person who is capable of carrying what you are asking for. And when the moment comes, you will not just receive it, you will sustain it because you were ready. Life operates within a framework of cause and effect. And within that framework, the choices you make determine the speed and direction of your progress. Many people struggle with the feeling that their lives are stagnant, that things are not moving as quickly as they should. They wait for opportunities, for relationships, for success, believing that time alone will bring about change. But time does not create movement. Your actions do. And among the most powerful actions you can take is obedience to a structure of order that is higher than yourself. Obedience is not a popular concept. People often associate it with submission, with the relinquishing of personal freedom. But in reality, obedience to the right principles is not a form of restriction. It is a path to acceleration. Think about it in terms of physical fitness. If you desire to be strong, there is a clear structure that must be followed. You cannot lift weights sporadically, eat poorly, neglect rest, and expect your body to develop strength. You must submit to a system of discipline. You must obey the laws of physical development, consistent training, proper nutrition, recovery, and when you do, results come quickly. You improve at a pace that is impossible for those who refuse to align their actions with the natural laws of growth. The same is true for every area of life. People desire financial stability, yet they disobey the fundamental principles of financial success. They spend recklessly, they fail to invest, they do not develop marketable skills. They want strong relationships, yet they disregard the principles of trust, communication, and responsibility. They wish for meaning, yet they reject the hard work of self-discipline and personal development. The point is this: when you align yourself with the right principles, things begin to move more quickly, not because the world suddenly favors you, but because you have positioned yourself to receive the rewards that come with obedience. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the pursuit of a healthy, long-lasting relationship. Many people say they want love, that they are waiting for the right person to appear in their lives. But what does waiting actually mean? Too often it means passivity. It means sitting idly, hoping that something will change without taking meaningful action. And the uncomfortable truth is that waiting, in the absence of preparation and obedience, is just another word for stagnation. If you desire a strong relationship, then you must first become a strong individual. You must obey the principles that govern healthy relationships: developing emotional resilience, practicing honesty, refining your ability to communicate, learning how to sacrifice. Love is not a product of chance. It is the natural consequence of two people who have prepared themselves well enough to handle the complexities of commitment. And when you engage in that process, when you take responsibility for your own development, you will often find that things begin to move quickly. Opportunities arise. The right people enter your life. What once seemed distant and unreachable suddenly feels within grasp. Why? Because obedience eliminates unnecessary obstacles. Disobedience, ignoring structure, neglecting discipline, refusing to follow wisdom, slows you down. It creates resistance. Imagine two people trying to reach the same destination. One follows the map, staying on the path that has been laid out. The other ignores it, choosing to wander aimlessly. Which one arrives first? The answer is obvious. The same principle applies to every aspect of life. There is a structure, a design, a blueprint for how things work. The more you align yourself with it, the less resistance you face, and the less resistance you face, the faster you move. There is an argument to be made that people often delay their own progress without realizing it. They engage in self-sabotage, not necessarily through malice, but through ignorance. They ignore red flags in relationships and then wonder why they end up heartbroken. They spend years working in unfulfilling careers without taking the steps necessary to change their circumstances. They desire discipline, but give in to every impulse that demands immediate gratification. The result is delay. The result is a life that moves at a painfully slow pace. Not because success is impossible, but because they are actively resisting the very things that would lead them forward. So what is the solution? The solution is obedience, not in a passive, mindless sense, but in an intentional commitment to following the principles that produce success. It means studying those who have built meaningful relationships and applying their wisdom. It means adhering to the rules of self-discipline, delaying gratification, focusing on long-term outcomes rather than short-term desires. It means recognizing that you do not need to reinvent the wheel. There are structures already in place that will lead to progress if you are willing to follow them. And when you do, when you commit to this path, you will find that acceleration happens naturally. You will not need to force things into existence. You will not need to manipulate outcomes. You will simply move forward because you are no longer working against yourself. The barriers that once slowed you down, fear, doubt, disorganization, distraction, will begin to fall away, and as they do, progress will come swiftly. So if you feel stuck, if you wonder why things are not moving as quickly as you hoped, ask yourself this: am I truly aligned with the principles that lead to success? Have I structured my life in such a way that I am prepared for the very things I desire? Because when you begin to obey the right principles, you will find that life itself begins to move in your favor. The things you longed for will no longer feel distant. They will come closer, faster. Not by chance, not by luck, but by the simple and undeniable reality that obedience accelerates progress. Life has a way of testing people, often in ways they do not expect. And one of the most challenging tests comes in the form of adversity. There are moments when everything seems to be falling apart, when plans unravel, relationships strain, and progress grinds to a halt. In those moments, the question is not simply, why is this happening, but rather, how will I respond? Because adversity is not merely an obstacle, it is an opportunity. It is the forge in which character is formed, where resilience is built, where individuals either rise to the challenge or succumb to despair. People often assume that the presence of struggle means that something is wrong. They believe that if things were truly meant to happen, then the process should be easy. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of how life works. Growth does not happen in the absence of resistance. It happens because of it. The weightlifter does not become strong by lifting nothing. The student does not become wise by avoiding difficulty. The individual does not become mature by escaping hardship. Strength, whether physical, intellectual, or emotional, is forged in struggle. And this means that adversity is not a sign of failure. It is a necessary component of success. Consider the person who desires a meaningful relationship. They might believe that when they meet the right person, everything will be effortless, that there will be no conflicts, no misunderstandings, no difficulties to navigate. But that is not how relationships work. A meaningful relationship is not the product of avoiding hardship. It is the product of learning to endure it together. It is built through patience, through sacrifice, through the willingness to confront difficulties rather than flee from them. And those who understand this, who embrace the struggles rather than resist them, are the ones who build relationships that last. The same is true for personal development. No one becomes the person they are meant to be by remaining comfortable. Comfort breeds stagnation. It creates an environment where people stop pushing themselves, where they settle for what is easy rather than striving for what is meaningful. And when difficulty arises, those who have avoided struggle are the first to collapse under its weight. They lack the resilience that comes only through repeated exposure to challenge. They have not learned how to carry burdens, so when burdens inevitably come, they crumble. But the individual who has faced adversity and refused to retreat is different. They understand that struggle is not the enemy, it is the training ground. Every hardship, every moment of pain, every obstacle overcome contributes to the development of a person who is capable of bearing even greater responsibility. And this is the real key to success, not the avoidance of struggle, but the mastery of it. The idea that struggle is a pathway to acceleration is counterintuitive. People assume that difficulty slows them down, that pain is merely a roadblock preventing them from reaching their goals. But in reality, struggle refines people. It removes weakness. It forces individuals to confront their own limitations, to develop new skills, to gain new perspectives. And those who persist through difficulty often find that on the other side, they have not been delayed but accelerated. They are stronger, wiser, more capable than before. This is why hardship often precedes breakthrough. Before something truly meaningful happens in a person's life, they will often experience significant resistance. They will be tested. They will face situations that seem impossible to overcome. And in that moment, they have a choice: to give up or to push forward. Those who give up remain exactly where they are, trapped by the very obstacles they refuse to confront. But those who push forward, despite the difficulty, emerge transformed. Consider the story of anyone who has achieved something remarkable. Their success is never the product of an easy path. It is always marked by failure, by rejection, by moments where quitting seemed like the only logical option. But they did not quit. They endured. And because they endured, they accelerated. They moved beyond where they once were, not in spite of the struggle, but because of it. This is a principle that applies to every area of life. If you desire a fulfilling marriage, you must be willing to endure the difficulties that come with commitment. If you seek career success, you must be willing to fail, to learn, to adapt. If you long for meaning, you must be willing to face suffering without losing your sense of purpose. The greater the struggle, the greater the potential for transformation. And so when adversity comes, the question is not whether you will face it, the question is whether you will allow it to shape you into someone stronger, or whether you will let it break you. Will you retreat, seeking comfort at the cost of growth, or will you press forward, using hardship as a catalyst for progress? Because those who learn to endure struggle do not merely survive it, they emerge from it faster, sharper, more prepared for the future. They are not slowed down by adversity. They are propelled forward, and in the end, they are the ones who move quickly toward what they were meant to become. One of the greatest barriers to progress is uncertainty. People hesitate because they are unsure of the path ahead, afraid that if they take action, they may fail. They stand at the threshold of opportunity, paralyzed, waiting for a perfect moment that never arrives. But life does not wait. It moves forward regardless of whether you are ready, and those who refuse to act are left behind. The paradox is this: you do not gain clarity by standing still. You gain it by moving. Many people think that if they just had more certainty, more evidence that things will work out, they would be able to step forward with confidence. But that is not how life functions. Clarity does not come first. Action does. If you wait for all the answers before taking the first step, you will never take the first step. This is because certainty is built through experience. It is something earned, not something given. Consider the way a person learns any skill. A musician does not wait until they understand every note before they touch an instrument. They play, they make mistakes, they adjust. A speaker does not master communication before speaking. They develop confidence by speaking, refining their craft with each attempt. The same is true for every pursuit. The clarity you seek is not something that precedes action, it is something that emerges from it. This is especially true in relationships. People often claim they are waiting for the right person, that they do not want to make a mistake in love, but waiting does not prepare you, it does not make you wiser. If anything, it often creates more hesitation, more fear. Relationships, like every other meaningful endeavor, require risk. You will not be perfect. You will not have all the answers. But the only way to truly understand how to love is by stepping forward, learning and growing through the experience itself. The same principle applies to personal development. Many people desire to improve themselves, to become stronger, more disciplined, more capable, but rather than taking action, they hesitate. They think, they analyze, they overplan, convincing themselves that once they have the perfect strategy, they will begin. But no strategy, no plan, no amount of preparation can replace the necessity of taking the first step. This hesitation is often rooted in a deep fear of failure. People do not want to make mistakes. They do not want to face rejection. They want a guarantee that every action they take will lead to success. But life does not provide guarantees. It never has. And the people who accomplish great things are not those who avoid failure, but those who embrace it. They recognize that failure is not the opposite of progress. It is part of progress. Every mistake teaches. Every misstep provides insight. And those who move despite uncertainty are the ones who ultimately gain the clarity they seek. Imagine two people standing at the edge of a dense forest. One refuses to enter until they can see the entire path ahead. The other understands that the only way to see the path is by walking it. The first person remains stuck, waiting endlessly for certainty. The second moves forward, step by step, learning the way as they go. Who reaches their destination? The answer is obvious, and yet so many people live as the first person, hoping for clarity before they act, never realizing that clarity is the reward of action. This applies to every area of life. If you desire to build a career, you must begin before you feel ready. If you want to develop confidence, you must take risks before you are certain of the outcome. If you want to strengthen your character, you must make difficult choices, even when you do not know exactly where they will lead. The people who grow the most, who achieve the most, are not necessarily the ones who have the most talent or intelligence. They are the ones who move forward even in uncertainty. And when you do this, when you stop waiting and start acting, you will find that things begin to move quickly. The opportunities you once thought were distant will come into reach. The confidence you believed you lacked will begin to develop. The answers you thought you needed before taking action will come because you took action. The truth is that life is dynamic. It responds to movement. When you begin to step forward, new opportunities arise, doors open that were once invisible, and you start to realize that the uncertainty you feared was never the real problem. The real problem was hesitation. So if you feel stuck, if you are waiting for certainty before you act, recognize that certainty is a mirage. You will never have absolute clarity before beginning, but that does not mean you should not begin. It means you must have the courage to move forward anyway. Because when you do, when you take responsibility for stepping into the unknown, you will find that clarity comes not as something given, but as something earned.